The maniacal cultists are quelled for a time, but there can be no celebration. Your progress is measured only in progressive realization and dawning horror. You are in the shadow of the end.
And welcome back to more Darkest Dungeon. This is episode 45, week 116, getting underway. Alright, first things first, let's deal with this rather puzzling and pretty rare town event called Crystalline Foci. Gazing deep into the shimmering colors of the comet fractures can bring a sense of peace. So evidently, what this town event does is it relieves 50 stress on each hero in the roster for every 30 shards you possess. And I gotta say, first and foremost, it's hard to imagine a situation where this is useful at all. I suppose if you've been doing a lot of endless harvest runs in the farmstead and you've amassed a huge collection of shards, and you also have a roster full of stressed out heroes somehow, then it would be perfect. But yeah, I just can't imagine that scenario ever occurring. And as far as our situation goes this week, we just returned from a successful mission in the Darkest Dungeon, which automatically removes all the stress from all the heroes in the roster. So yeah, this couldn't have been more ill-timed. At any rate, it's random, these town events, and we can't really fault the game for bad design or anything like that. It's just the one that happened to come up this week, and it just happened to be of no use. Of much greater importance, however, is the fact that we have successfully completed our first two assaults on the Darkest Dungeon. Devatron, we're about to embark on our third assault, the Belly of the Beast, pretty big time title. And then after this, we just have one more to go and we'll be done. Can you believe we've made it this far? Man, this has been a long, long road. Alright, so Belly of the Beast, I kind of vacillate on this quest. On the one hand, the way it was initially intended as what is considered an exhausting length dungeon. You know, you have short and medium, long length dungeons, etc. Well, this one is categorized as exhausting. And you're given 4 pieces of firewood. All right. So, again, on the one hand, the way it's intended, it's a pretty ball buster, pretty kick-ass quest. I think it's just brilliant, and it's a real test of your ability to play long, grueling dungeons, your ability to put a party together, your ability to keep track of where you're at on a big, spread-out, circuitous, labyrinthine map, etc., etc. But on the other hand, this may in fact be the dumbest, most poorly designed dungeon in the entire game. Unfortunately, you have to put all the good stuff I said about it aside, because this dungeon, this quest, suffers from a major, major fundamental flaw. And that is the fact that this dungeon is one of the darkest dungeon maps, and because of that, it's the same every time. All the fights are in exactly the same spot every time. All the quest goals are in exactly the same spot every time, etc., etc. So once you know where that stuff is, then you can just go right to where you need to go. You can plan your rest exactly where you need to rest, etc., etc. And you end up cutting through the dungeon in like 10 minutes. So what was intended to be an exhausting, you need to camp 4 times, this is going to take hours type of dungeon, and you're going to get lost in this maze-like labyrinth of eldritch horrors, ends up being, you go here and then down here and then boom, you found the focus and you're done. So, in the end, unlike our nonsensical town event this week, you can blame this on bad design. The devs should have made this map randomly generated every time you do it. The way it is, it's pretty amazing the first time you do it, assuming you do it blind. After that, it's a joke. Alright, enough preamble, Devatron. We got our Hellion and double Houndmaster and a Vestal. This should be fun. Let's go venture into the belly of the beast.
The interminable stone holds are but an antechamber. The creature is vast beyond measure, and must be battled from within. Step over the threshold, and let the terrible truth worm its way into your mind. The Gateless Gate. A maddening aperture to realms beyond human understanding.
Okay, Devatron. Really gruesome stuff. Look at this place. This map actually looks and feels like you're walking around in the belly of the beast, you know, like walking through the intestines of some massive eldritch horror. Reminds me a little bit of Star Wars when they stop on that asteroid in that cave, but they're really inside the throat of a giant space worm.
Circle in the dark. The battle may yet be won.
Alright, so right off the bat, you can see kind of how dumb this quest is once you know where everything's at. Obviously, if you were doing this blind for the first time, or if it were randomly generated, you wouldn't camp right away. You would conserve your precious firewood and save it for when it was really needed. At any rate, that's not the case. We already know where stuff is, and we know we can rest here and get buffed up. As for our buffs, we increase the Hellion's damage and crit chance, as well as her dodge and accuracy. We increased all of the Vestal's companions' protection, and we also reduced the incoming stress on our Vestal. Keep in mind we had 14 points to spend because of the Outsider's bonfire and the fact that we had a Hellion in the group.
The light, the promise of safety. The match is struck. A blazing star is born. Slowly, gently. This is how a life is taken. As the fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms. Confidence surges as the enemy crumbles.
Okay, so first fight down, no problems there. 3 flesh hounds. Every enemy in this dungeon that we're going to fight anyway is an Eldritch class or a beast, or sometimes like the flesh hounds, they're both Eldritch and beast enemies. And that's why Houndmasters make such a great choice for this quest, because a lot of their innate abilities do bonus damage against beasts. And as for our two specific Houndmasters, they've acquired some quirks along the way, like Beast Hater and Eldritch Slayer, etc., that further give them bonus damage against beasts as well as eldritch enemies.
In Radiance, may we find victory. Destroyed. Annihilated. Compassion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle. A decisive pummeling. The blood pumps, the limbs obey. Their formation is broken. Maintain the offensive. Victory. Perhaps the turning point. The way is lit. The path is clear. We require only the strength to follow it. Press this advantage. Give them no quarter.
All right. A mammoth cyst and a white cell stalk, Devatron.
Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all. The wounds of war can be healed, but never hidden. Obliterated. Success so clearly in view. Or is it merely a trick of the light?
All right, so we need to talk a little bit more about that mammoth cyst and the white cell stalk. Those are really what make this quest hard and what it was intended to be.
Gathered close in tenuous firelight and uneasy companionship.
Okay, so the white cell stalk has an attack that will teleport the entire party to a random location in the dungeon. And the dungeon is big, it just sprawls all over the place. So you can imagine that if you didn't kill those things immediately and they got that teleport off, that this dungeon truly would be really difficult and grueling and exhausting. You'd be going all over the place and then having to find your way back and then getting teleported again and again. And, you know, it would be quite a nightmare.
As the light gains purchase, spirits are lifted and purpose is made clear.
But if you can do like we did and kill the white cell stalks before they get that attack off, then you can avoid getting teleported. You can go right where you need to go.
Masterfully executed. Monstrous size has no intrinsic merit, unless inordinate exsanguination be considered a virtue.
So in the end, I guess there still is some risk associated with this dungeon in that if you don't kill those white cell stalks in time, you will get teleported, and then the dungeon will truly turn into a long, grueling nightmare, and it'll be tough. But as you saw, it's not that hard to kill the white cell stalks and prevent the teleport, and in a few fights, in a few minutes, you're already at the final destination.
eradicated. Decimated. Accursed champion falls. As victories mount, so too will resistance.
Oh yeah, big time, Devatron. And there it is. Locust Beacon activated. Yeah, so 18 minutes from the start of the dungeon to the end. I think we used 2 firewoods just to be sure that we were buffed for all the fights. Definitely not what the developers probably intended. So as for the rewards, some gold, some heirlooms, who cares at this point? The Quarks, we don't need to go over it. Again, you can still use these heroes in other quests, but they can't come back to the darkest dungeon. We only have one more quest to go, Devatron. Man. Can't believe we're already here. The darkest dungeon, belly of the beast. Look out. We'll see you next time for the last episode.